So this is our third of 4 office hours for this phase. And as I mentioned before I started the recording, I think what's going to be helpful is just talking about business cases, setting up your business cases and potentially connecting your recommendations. As I've talked about with some of you at your one-on-ones, some of these projects by themselves, because it is a very like small sliver of the greater data science landscape, I guess you'd say, because these projects are very hyper specific on a certain topic, coming up with a business case might be a little bit tougher. So I'm gonna try my best to explain how these individual things could fit into a larger data science project and how you would come up with your business case slash recommendations as a result. Now, business case is going to be very, very important for your capstone. You're going to see, I actually have been working on putting together like a list of resources for the capstone. In a couple of the project planners, they ask you, why is your project important? And, you know, I would say the most common interview question I get is, why did you decide to do this project? And if you don't have a strong business case, I mean, the business case could be like silly, but it has to be a problem that you are trying to solve. And so having a strong business case and having insights that result from you working on your project that connect back to your business case is really going to help you in, you know, explaining why your project is worth a company looking into. And it also does demonstrate your ability to take, you know, the technical aspects of data science and apply them to, I guess, just, I think it's more, well, adaptability, basically, your ability to adapt data science concepts into any real world situation. So that is why business cases are important. So let's just start with, let's just go in order of this. Let's start with recommendation systems. Recommendation systems, the obvious business case here is that you want to just generate recommendations. So let me just make, I'll just make a section for each of them saying business case. So obviously to generate recommendations. It may or may not be useful, again, depending on this movie project and how far you or how deep you get into it, you can extend this to become more specific. For example, are you trying to generate, like, what is the reason you're generating recommendations for? Are you trying to encourage new users to join a specific streaming platform, for example? You can totally link back to our like phase 1 project and maybe like Microsoft streaming platform. They want to generate recommendations that will allow for customer retention, as an example. So think about why specifically you are generating recommendations. How do you want to differentiate from other existing similar recommendations, i.e. customer retention. Customer retention. And so recommendation systems, I've been talking with a lot of you who are working on this topic, very, very difficult to validate. So I will share my own personal experience from working with recommendation systems. I've built recommendation systems for like companies in the past, and it is a very, very consistently evolving process. I will say one common workflow that I've worked with is, as you have a recommendation system, you implement it and you see how people are reacting to your recommendations. So for example, you can collect data on, or the company, or you can collect data on how, let's say you're recommending 5 different things, and they happen to click on like item 2 out of 5 or item 4 out of 5. You would then analyze these similarities between, or similarities or differences between, you know, the items that people are selecting out of all of the things that you're recommending. And it will just lead to you being able to tweak your recommendations to better serve your customers. And so you could be working on making little adjustments to your recommendation system for, I don't know, as long as your job goes. So it goes, I think, yeah, it goes to show one, validating recommendations is hard because you never know how people like things. It's so subjective. But two, it's also, just remember, it's an evolving process. Like it's very rare that you create a recommendation system and you're like, all right, there it is. We're never going to touch it ever again. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I think with like business case for recommendation systems with this project, and to capstones, if your final product is a recommendation system, I mean, you can imagine how you can incorporate other parts of our course into with recommendation systems. I've seen a lot of like NLP recommendations, a lot of neural network recommendations as well. I'll have examples for you all tomorrow. But yeah. Any thoughts or questions about like a recommendation system business case? I feel like it is one of the more obvious ones because the recommendation system itself is a product. So yeah, any questions or thoughts? Cool. All right. So yeah, in terms of business recommendations for here, a really helpful post-modeling EDA would be to see is there popularity bias, especially if you're using an SVD model. Take a look at, well, through your pre-modeling EDA, you could see what are the top rated movies in this example, what the top rated movies are, and whether your predicted ratings for each movie end up being, biased by your data. I mean, obviously it would be because that's one of the drawbacks of SVD, but good to just confirm that. For time series, I would say for time series, your business case can be it will be quite similar to the business case for, I think, your phase 2 project. So business case, in time series, you're always trying to predict. So you're trying to predict / forecast. So naturally, your business case would revolve around, profiting off of something or being able to, capitalize on your predictions being different from something else. Will be around capitalizing on your predictions. So yeah, I think this one's pretty straightforward. If you have like your zip codes and you see that, for some zip codes, you're predicted to have a much higher return on investment, that is easily your business recommendation. Other things that you can do in time series data in terms of, I will say not so much for this project specifically because there isn't exogenous data, but with exogenous data, you can make the same recommendations as you did with linear regression. So for example, if you include exogenous data in your time series, you'll get coefficients for exogenous data. So you'll very easily be able to say, all right, well, if I want to maximize the forecast in the future, I should try and maximize what? Like, for example, in this case, you're trying to maximize the price of zip codes. Maybe it has a high coefficient with perhaps year over year economic prosperity within a zip code. So basically like, yeah, I guess the growth in average income over the past month, something like that, if you have that data. So then you would say, all right, just look out for the places that have a high growth in income, and that would be a really good place to invest in. So you imagine these would be like high growth zip codes, just as an example. So yeah, in terms of business recommendations, I'll just add this here. If you include exogenous variables, your recommendations can be derived from your coefficients. So not similar, same as your coefficient analysis in linear regression. or logistic regression too. Cool. Any thoughts here with like business case / recommendations in time series? Awesome. Well, with NLP, I will say that it is also important whenever you're doing an NLP project, it's important to think about what you're using the NLP for. NLP is really still just a text pre-processing. NLP encapsulates the text pre-processing part for the most part. So in terms of business recommendations or business case, it's important to think about how you're going to, like, what are you using the NLP for? So yeah. What's the final product? So a lot of you are thinking about doing NLP as your capstone projects, which is great. But it is hard to, actually come up with a concrete idea that can incorporate NLP. So do you want to classify something? Do you want to forecast? Do you want to make predictions in like a regression sense? You can even go further. Do you want to generate text? I think that's a really common one as well. So your business case will come from that. So NLP is essentially just, a means to an end, you could say. Yeah, I don't know what else I could say regarding this. In terms of your recommendations, again, coefficient analysis, if you are doing like any sort of tree model, if you're trying to classify your text, any sort of tree model can lead you to find, what are the most important words from your important features. Same, you can do coefficient analysis if you're deciding to do a regression, things like that. Other things that you can use to like validate, you can always use like word similarities. You can use your word embeddings, word similarities to compare your results. Again, it is highly, highly varied, like what you're using them for. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any like ideas of like NLP projects that you can't formulate a business case for. Happy to talk about if anyone has any specific examples, but yeah, for NLP, I feel like it's really more about what the NLP is used for. Yeah, any questions or thoughts? All right, well, the last one is image classification, neural networks. Again, like I would say in an image classification project, the way that you come up with a business case is very, very similar as to coming up with a business case for a classification project. Why is it important to classify images? I know that the business case in this project is, I believe it's like the chest x-rays. So being able to successfully detect abnormalities in a chest x-ray, that is a very important business case on its own. So I think that one's pretty straightforward. So really quickly, business case. It's like in classification, the business case lies in the model, in the task itself. If that makes sense. You want to be able to detect abnormalities in chest x-rays. And then your recommendations from that, I will say neural networks, it is tougher unless you're using neural networks in some other way. Like for example, in the example of like using neural networks in recommendation systems, for example. But usually recommendations for image classification is harder because it's hard to get like a model level analysis. Like you cannot get anything meaningful from like the weights on all of your nodes or in your layers. So neural network recommendations are usually more qualitative or general. It is possible to visualize using a heat map to see like, oh, this is in the case of images. So let me see. So yeah, this is under image classification. So there are libraries where you can actually overlay a heat map over your image to see like where the most important pixels are. I'll look for it and link it here, but there's a library that you can overlay a heat map to find out most important pixels per each image. So it's on an image level. So per each image, they'll be able to zoom in and detect like, all right, what are the parts of the image that is leading to it being classified as something within with like a normality, for example. So I'll look for that link and send that here. So yeah, that's for each one specifically. I want to talk about this because this coming up with a business case is extremely important for your capstone projects. I think without a strong business case, it is hard to get people to care about your project, if that makes sense. And again, the business case doesn't have to be something serious, like you want to like generate profit or you want to like successfully classify like illnesses. As long as it is a problem that exists in the world and you're able to say why it's important that you solve this problem, that works. But you just have to get comfortable with, and a lot of you are from the past projects, just getting comfortable with, you know, doing the technical stuff in context of some sort of business case. So this will like propagate through the rest, like all parts of your project, right? Like when you're doing your data cleaning, your EDA, you have to think about your business case. What is the EDA that people are going to care about? What data pre-processing steps am I going to take in any of these kinds of projects? You will take into consideration your business case when you're making these decisions. Evaluating your models, like whether a model is doing well or not. Of course, you compare it to a baseline, but also I think most commonly, I've been talking about this with you all who are doing recommendation systems. Having a prediction that is on average like 1 star off on a 5-star scale, is that a big deal? Is that a bad model? So yeah, it's important to think about in context. Like if you're doing something like movies, it's not as high stakes if you accidentally like predict something to be a 4 when they actually would have rated it a 3. So yeah, everything is grounded in context. And I think it is, yeah, it's literally the value add of a data scientist to be that bridge between like technical and non-technical. But yeah, that was my rambling on about business cases. I will be having you all, as you like pitch your capstones to me, tell me about your business case and tell me why it's important that you do this project. So yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, at this point, does anyone have any questions about anything? It can be about the project, it can be about capstones. I know a lot of you are getting nervous about capstones, so happy to take questions on that as well. Well, all right. Well, if there are no other questions, I think I've rambled on a lot about, I don't know, a lot about qualitative things. If there are no other questions, I think I might let you all go and get back to your projects. Again, more than happy to look over any of your projects as they are now. Just send over a GitHub link, and if you have multiple notebooks, tell me where you want me to look. And I'm happy to look over and like give feedback on that. I think that might be more helpful than you all asking me questions at this point, because a lot of you are like well into the process of the project. So yeah, I will let you all do that. Yeah, just preferably by today, so that I do have like a full schedule of 101s. So hopefully I can get to some of them by tonight, some of them by tomorrow, so you can have the weekend. So yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to mention?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have a question about the topics that we choose for capstone.
Absolutely.
For example, is there any recommendation on choosing between these subjects? For example, choosing recommendation systems is better than, for example, image classification for capstone, because, for example, 80% of the companies are looking for recommendation systems, for example.
Um, I I don't think that there is any one capstone idea that is better than the others just because you are all in different job markets. You're all different, interested in different things. Um, I will say, in terms of like neural networks, there is a lot of like back and forth between, does it make sense to do a neural network project for the capstone? There are definitely pros and cons. Pro being that like during the capstone, you actually have the time to run really robust models and you have the time to just wait for things to train. And I have seen like pretty cool, like honestly, very, very impressive neural network projects. And it's up to you if you want to tackle those. Speaking of which, I do want to add some more neural network examples to the list of capstones I'm going to send out tomorrow. I do think that it's important for you to think about what you are actually interested in. I think beyond everything else, that's the most important thing. If you're able to like talk about your project passionately, I think that is something that does come across a lot in interviews. So don't do a project on a topic that you think is going to be useful for your job in the future, but you don't care about. Like, in my experience, like interviewing candidates for like Flatiron School roles, it is quite obvious when people are doing a project because they want to versus they think that they have to. That's just my experience as an interviewer. Doesn't apply to everything, I'm sure, but I will just let y'all know that that was something that was very obvious to me. In terms of like the specific topics, I will say that for like a data scientist role, questions that get asked the most are not surprisingly, but they actually come more from like linear regression, as well as and like basically all of the phase three stuff. Just because those are the models that are most commonly used for like the tasks that data scientists are doing. So it is 100% possible to use some of like the phase 3 models as your capstone. And then what you add on to it is like maybe you do like different data pre-processing, right? Like for example, you can finally incorporate NLP with like all of those phase 3 models. Also, you could, I think, I forget if I've mentioned it to everybody at once, but I know I've talked about this in some one-on-ones. But not a lot, but there's like a good proportion of students who end up focusing less on modeling and more on like the data analysis portion, like creating very, very good, useful visualizations, and generating insights from that. Or if you do run a model, that becomes like a small part of it, and you're still more about the analysis of the model results and turning those into insights. And those end up being what I call like EDA heavy projects, which is also completely fine because a lot of jobs, a lot of data scientist jobs out there don't include modeling, surprisingly. Like they're kind of like, there's like a gray area between like data analysts, data scientists, where yeah, some people out of this program realize that they don't like doing modeling and just want to do that. So I don't know. This is a very, very long answer to say that like it really, I mean, it's really up to you what you want to do. Also, there's different things that you can optimize on. Like for example, if your phase 4 project is one of these topics, maybe you want your capstone to be something different just so you have variety, or maybe you want it to be the same so that you can show some sort of direction to specialize. Yeah, could really go either way. I would say that in terms, it is very, very specific per student. Like what makes a good capstone is going to differ per student, per your goals, per like the industry that you want to get into. Yeah, and these are all things that feel free to like let me know as you're deciding on your capstone. Just so if I don't know, I'm just like an extra set of like eyes and ears to gauge that for you. But yeah, so Ali, I did not answer your question, but it was a long, a roundabout way on saying like, I don't think it matters too much what you choose. Just don't choose something that you dislike is one definitive thing. But yeah, anything else?
And I also have another question about search optimization.
Yeah,
In which category it belongs to?
that's a great question. It's actually something that I've been meaning to ask one of my classmates that has gotten into search optimization. So I will let you know. I actually do not know off the top of my head like what exactly search optimization, like what kind of models are they optimizing over. Yeah, I actually have not looked into that at all, but I will find out for you. Maybe I will, yeah, I'll find out for you all.
Thank you.
Or yeah, feel free to do some reading on your own. I honestly am not sure.
When I worked in digital advertising, the SEO people worked pretty much with Google, like Google AdWords, like on their platform itself, kind of like Facebook has their own advertising platform.
I could see that. I could see that. Like you're trying to optimize your results to be like to appear first. So you use like specific, yeah, like AdWords. I know like Medium has really good search optimization in terms of like they always come up first in search results. So those of you who are publishing your blogs on Medium, if you try Googling yourself, those will come up first, which is nice in a professional sense. But yeah. Anything else before we break off? All right then. Honestly, I don't really have much to add for tomorrow's study group either. I will be taking some time to talk about like preparing for the capstone, but I don't want to go too in depth just in case. I mean, yeah, we are technically still working on the phase 4 project, so I don't want to get too in depth with the capstone stuff. So yeah, we'll talk about some of that stuff tomorrow. I'll be sending out like a guidelines doc for capstones tomorrow as well. All right, then, if there's nothing else, again, really like all of the Slack questions that are coming in. I will admit I'd be a little bit slower today in catching up because all the one-on-ones, but I will get through all of them for sure.
Excuse me, Ish.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I didn't get the email that you said that we should get from.
Oh, okay.
I want to ask everyone that everyone else get it or not, or it's just me.
In one-on-ones that I've asked, I believe most people have gotten it. So I'll check on that for you, Ali.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if anyone else has not received the email to sign up for Pathwrite, I'll put it in the Slack so you can like search up the name. Pathwrite is spelled PATHWRIGHT, I think. But yeah, I'll put it in the Slack so you can check your emails. But Ali, I'll check on that for you. Anyone else that hasn't received that, please let me know so I can get that set up for you because that has all of your career prep information. If you don't get that, there's a chance that well, I believe that, I don't know. I'm not sure how the career coaches are notified about students, but it could delay that. So I'm not sure. So do let me know if you haven't gotten a link to that yet. Of course, you don't have to start on any of that material as of now. You can definitely wait till after capstone to do that, but up to you. I know some of you want to get a head start. Cool. Is there any final questions before we break off for the day? All right, then. Well, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be talking briefly about getting ready for the capstone because I know a lot of you all are really thinking about it. So we'll get into some of that. Oh, before I forget, this evening at 6:15 Eastern time, Amber, I believe, covered a couple office hours while I was out. She's actually doing a little session on things to expect for data scientists past 2020. I think that'll be a really interesting session. Her students are also currently going into capstone, so perfect timing for us. It will be recorded, so I'll get that recording for you all if any of y'all can make it.
And it's really at 6:15? 15 after?
Yeah, it is at 15 after. I believe because she does have like a study group right before or something like that.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, then I will leave you all to go back to work on your projects. And as usual, Slack me if you have any questions. All right, bye everybody. Have a good rest of your day.